Hi, welcome. Today I want to discuss some ancient classics and philosophy books that you can read as a beginner. I know it can feel intimidating, and I've had this feeling myself. I still do whenever I pick up a philosophy or ancient classic book. I always catch myself thinking, will I be able to understand this? In my opinion, the books that I'm going to suggest are perfectly readable. And the first on my list is, of course, Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey. I picked the Robert Fagel's translation, which I absolutely loved. I want to reread these someday in a different translation, but the Fagel's translation was the first translation that I picked. The Iliad is a fierce epic of honor and rage and mortality set in the final days of the Trojan War, and the Odyssey is a tale of survival, cunning, homecoming as Odysseus struggles to return home after the war. These are very long poems and they're extremely enjoyable. Book 1 of the Iliad starts with Rage, goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles, murderous doomed that caused the Achaeans countless losses, hurling down to the house of death so many sturdy souls, great fighters' souls, but made their bodies carrion, feasts for the dogs and birds, and the will of Zeus was moving toward its end. Begin, Muse, when the two first broke and clashed, Agamemnon, lord of men, and brilliant Achilles. The next recommendation is Seneca's Letters from a Stoic. This edition is, translated by Robin Campbell, and it is by Penguin Classics. These are practical, consoling reflections on how to live calmly, wisely, and with inner freedom. Here is an excerpt. Judging from what you tell me and from what I hear, I feel that you show great promise. You do not tear from place to place and unsettle yourself with one move after another. Restlessness of that sort is symptomatic of a sick mind. Nothing, to my way of thinking, is better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. And another philosophy book that gets recommended all the time is Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. This is a perfect book to start your philosophy journey with because it's so easy to read and it is very enjoyable. And I personally really loved it. I have this edition by Everyman's Library, but I haven't yet read this translation because the first time I've read it, I read it in my own language and I got a copy from my local library, but I'm very excited to read it again in English someday. And I'm just opening it on a random page and I will read to you the excerpt. Call to mind by way of example the time of Vespasian. You will see everything the same, men marrying, bringing up children, falling ill, dying, fighting, feasting, trading, farming, flattering, asserting themselves, suspecting, plotting, praying for another's dead, murmuring at the present, lusting, heaping up riches, setting their heart on offices and thrones. And now that life of theirs is no more and nowhere. This is a private journal of Stoic self-discipline, and it reminds the reader to act justly and accept fate. The next author that I would like to recommend is Euripides. This is Medea and Other Plays. This is a selection of plays that I have read, and this is by Penguin Classics. Medea is a brutal tragedy of betrayal and revenge that exposes the extremes of human passion, and Alcestis is a story of sacrifice, death, unexpected restoration, and The Children of Heracles is a political tragedy, and Hippolytus is a drama of desire. When I first started reading Greek plays, I never imagined them to be so readable and so accessible. Here is a line of Iolaus that I really liked in The Children of Heracles. Cultured man should pray to have cultured men as his enemies, not barbarians in temperament. One would then receive full measure of respect and fair treatment. The next author I would like to recommend is Plato, of course. I have here 3 of his works. The Republic, which is up to this moment my very favorite. We have Phaedo and we have the Symposium. These 2 are by Oxford World's Classics and this one is by Penguin Classics. I was really blown away by the Republic and how much it made me think and reflect on life. It really made me reflect on things that I never thought about before. This is a philosophical exploration of justice, of the ideal state, and how humans perceive truth. And I'm just going to open up my copy and read to you a line that I marked. The same remark applies to those who are not rich and find old age a burden. A good man may not find old age easy to bear if he's poor, but a bad man won't be at peace with himself even if he is rich. Then Phaedo, this is a dialogue on the immortality of the soul set during Socrates' final hours. And then the Symposium is a series of speeches celebrating love and beauty and the ascent of the soul. The next author I would like to recommend is Sophocles. So I have read a combination of plays by this author, Antigone, Oedipus the King, and Electra in this Oxford World's Classics edition. Antigone is about a conflict between moral duty and political authority with tragic consequences. Oedipus the King is a tragedy of fate and identity, and Electra is a revenge drama. Another one that I've read and that I found surprisingly easy to read was the Enchiridion by Epictetus. It feels like reading a manual that teaches you to focus on what we can control. Next, I would like to recommend poetry of Ovid. This is the Metamorphoses, and I must say that when I started reading these, I had a hard time because I didn't know my Greek mythology. But then I first read Stephen Fry's Greek mythology books, and then I returned to this, and I cannot tell you how much I am enjoying this. So if you know your Greek mythology, then I highly, highly recommend Ovid because it is beautiful and funny, entertaining. Yes, I am really loving his poetry. It is full of mythic transformations and it explores love and power and the instability of the world. But then I would also like to recommend St. Augustine's Confessions. If I remember correctly, this is one of the first confessional books that was ever written. And even if you're not religious like me, it is a very interesting read. It's a spiritual autobiography and it describes Augustine's inner struggle toward faith and self-understanding. I was captivated by theatrical shows. They were full of representations of my own miseries and fueled my fire. Why is it that a person should wish to experience suffering by watching grievous and tragic events which he himself would not wish to endure? Nevertheless, he wants to suffer the pain given by being a spectator of these sufferings, and the pain itself is his pleasure. What is this but amazing folly? The next one I have is Virgil's Aeneid, and I must say that I didn't really enjoy this one myself. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I felt it was too long and I really struggled to get through, but this is a well-beloved poem, and yes, a lot of people just absolutely love it. It is a Roman epic of duty, destiny, and the founding myth of a civilization, and I've also read this in a Penguin Classics edition translated by Robert Fagles. I don't have a copy myself, but I also want to recommend Beowulf. This is an anonymous author and I really very much enjoyed it. I was also very surprised by how readable it was. It was actually because of Tolkien and the inspiration that he found in the work. He also made his own translation that I would love to read one day. I have read the one by Seamus Heaney and it was very readable. It was very good and I highly recommend. Beowulf is a heroic tale of monster slaying and loyalty and the fragility of earthly glory. The next one is a Chinese classic. It is the Analects, and this is a collection of teachings on virtue, harmony, and how to cultivate moral character in everyday life. I must say this isn't really my cup of tea. I haven't even finished it, and I don't think I'm going to. It feels like reading a report of someone who was in class and who was writing down notes. And it's very readable, but I just feel that I personally am not getting anything out of it. But I did want to put this on the list because it is accessible and easy to read. And then finally, and this may be the most intimidating one, is the Histories by Herodotus. And this is a Penguin Classics edition translated by Tom Holland. I was again so surprised by how readable it is. Let me give you just an excerpt. Rather than consult a doctor, the Babylonians will instead carry anyone who has fallen ill into the city's main square, where passers-by will give him tips on his ailment, drawn either from personal experience of the sufferer's symptoms or else from having observed the symptoms in others. Whether the passers-by was himself cured of a similar disease, or studied someone else who had been a patient and had recovered, he will be sure to offer prescriptions and remedies. To walk past an invalid in silence without asking him what illness he has is forbidden. He's called the father of history. It is just very intriguing and interesting, and it gives you a little insight into how life was like at that time. It is a groundbreaking account of the Greco-Persian Wars and of the world in which they took place. And finally, I want to recommend The Lives of the Caesars by Suetonius. And this is by Oxford World Classics. Again, I am actually busy reading this at the moment, but I wanted to include it because it is very readable, it is very entertaining, and I just love it. So these are biographies of emperors, and even though we don't know if Suetonius was being fully truthful or not, it is very interesting nonetheless. And the lives included are, of course, Julius Caesar, then Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. If you know any other recommendations for beginners in ancient classics, please drop them down below so we can all help each other out. And I'm wishing you a wonderful day.